Head of Presidential Leadership Council Rashad Al-Alimi visits Marib province for the first time since the formation of the PLC. Violent clashes erupt at the universities of America as students are arrested in pro-Palestinian protests. The United Nations says rebuilding Gaza would take over 16 years. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today News. I am Abir Ali. Head of the Presidential Leadership Council Rashad Al-Alimi made his first to Marib province since the foundation of the Leadership Council. This visit comes amid tensions in the region due to the Houthis' attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. This report has more.
After 2 years of the UN truce and the efforts of the international community to bring peace to Yemen and end the war, the visit of the chairman of the PLC to Marib comes for the first time since the establishment of the Command Council.
Al-Alimi's visit to Marib is the first since the formation of the Presidential Leadership Council. This visit has boosted the morale of soldiers.
During his visit, he met with the military leaders and leaders of the local authority and urged to raise combat readiness and the level of training and qualification.
Al-Alimi's visit to Marib comes amid the efforts made by the United Nations to reach peace in Yemen. However, Houthis continue to obstruct peace efforts and attack the Red Sea.
Al-Alimi's visit to Marib comes at a time when negotiations are taking place between Sana'a and Riyadh through Oman, and he stressed on enhancing combat readiness, the level of training and qualification of the military forces.
The Yemeni government accused the Houthi militia of obstructing a new round of negotiations on the prisoner exchange file. The spokesman for the government delegation, Majid Fadail, said the Houthi militia fails to attend the resumption of the negotiations. Fadail added that the delegation received 3 successive invitations from the United Nations and its special envoy to resume the negotiations to complete the exchange and release the remaining prisoners and abductees. The Houthi militia arrested 9 civilians in 3 districts of the Margawarat. Local sources reported that Houthi militia arrested 9 civilians in the Margawarat, 5 of whom belong to the Otma district. The Houthi militia claimed that it arrested them on charges of inciting people against the summer centers in their areas and said that incitement against the summer centers means incitement against the state. A number of employees of a Thawra Foundation expressed their outrage against the Houthi militia's continued plunder of the foundation's resources. In a statement, the employees renewed their rejection of the continued plundering of their entitlement and deprivation of the most basic rights. The employees carried out several protests in rejection of the militia's policy of the continued humiliation of employees and journalists by depriving them of their rights and ignoring their suffering. Mines and explosive remnants of war claimed more than 20 civilians' casualties, including dead and wounded. The majority of them were children in 7 Yemeni governments during the month of April. According to the international reports, the Houthi group planted more than 1.5 million mines in many Yemeni governments, forcing about 5 million people to leave their homes. The European Organization of Islamic Centers in Geneva held a symposium on efforts to clear mines. Director General of Massam Project, Osama Al-Qusaybi, addressed the symposium in which figures representing countries, international organizations and diplomatic bodies in Switzerland will participate. The symposium aims to exchange international views and experiences and enhance joint actions at the international level in the field of mine clearance. Hundreds of students were detained in 24 hours as protests over Israel's genocide in Gaza erupted on university campuses all over the United States. This report has more.
Hundreds of students were detained in 24 hours as protests over Israel's genocide in Gaza erupted on university campuses all over the United States. The bulk of the peaceful rallies have called for divestments from firms that support Israel and the Gaza war. Many of the schools have called in police to quell the protests. Clashes broke out at the University of California, Los Angeles, when a vigilante pro-Israel crowd stormed a solidarity campsite set up by peaceful pro-Palestine protesters. According to witnesses, the police department finally interfered after almost 4 hours of the assaults, when hundreds of masked pro-Israel counter-demonstrators arrived outside the university campus and flung fireworks into the camp. The aggressors, who bore Israeli flags, then tried to tear down the pro-Palestinian camp, assaulting students with pepper sprays, sticks, stones, and metal fencing. Meanwhile, law enforcement idly stood by, failing to protect students who repurposed the metal fencing hurled at them as a shield. Before the police arrived, a mob reportedly assaulted one person who lay on the ground, kicking and beating them until others pulled them out of the scrum. The number of injured is not yet known, but reports on social media indicated that some people have been led away with injuries. According to an Al Jazeera correspondent on the field, the crowd appears to be mostly people who are not students and do not live on the UCLA campus. Yet they are attempting to harass pro-Palestine anti-war activists. The activist stated that law enforcement simply stood at the edge of the lawn and refused to budge as we screamed for help. The only means of protection we had was each other as the attack went on for 7 more hours.
The United Nations officials said that rebuilding destroyed homes and public institutions in Gaza would take at least 16 years. More on this is in the following report.
United Nations estimates released Thursday, even if the bombing stopped today in Gaza, it will take until 2040 to reconstruct all of the homes damaged in nearly 7 months of Israel's bombardment and ground offensive in the area. The U.S. has pressed Israel to enhance humanitarian deliveries in Gaza. And on Wednesday, Israel reopened a border crossing with the hard-hit northern Gaza Strip for the first time since it was damaged at the beginning of the conflict. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pushed for an agreement on a ceasefire in the meantime, in return for an end to hostilities and the transfer of much-needed supplies of food, medication, and water into Gaza. The proposed truce would release the hostages held by Hamas. As part of the agreement, Palestinian detainees are anticipated to be released as well. Local health experts in Gaza reported that more than 34,000 Palestinians have been killed in the region, which is experiencing a humanitarian crisis. In addition, about 80% of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been forced from their homes by the IOF attacks, which has also severely damaged numerous towns and cities and brought starvation to the region's northern areas. Its hospitals, which are protected by international humanitarian law, have repeatedly been attacked. The World Health Organization reported earlier this month that an Israeli siege had reduced Gaza's largest hospital, Shifa, to ashes, leaving an empty shell with many bodies. This has been a war on the right to health since the outset, says an independent expert selected by the UN Human Rights Council. Gaza's health system has been utterly destroyed, and everyone's access to healthcare has been severely curtailed. According to the United Nations, a lack of humanitarian aid raises the possibility of famine in Gaza, where 2.4 million people are under near total siege by the Israeli occupation forces. Aid organizations believe it is particularly hard to send aid into the enclave due to Israel's siege and constant bombardment of the Strip.
Coming up in the news. Yemeni government is close to sign an agreement with the Starlink company to improve internet services.
As you can see today, this is one of our classes where we are having children aged starting from 9, 10, who have not been enrolled in the formal education, but in countries like Yemen, that has been suffering from a protracted conflict since 2014, more families and children are internally displaced. As these children and families move from one location to another, their access to education is interrupted. Even when families are prioritizing their children's education, schools in the host communities might find it very hard to accommodate the increased number of children who are coming and want to go back to school. And the result is more children are out of school across the country. UNICEF, in collaboration with its partners and with support from ECHO, is providing these families, children and communities with a second chance to education through its accelerated emergency learning programs. As we have been working with families, communities and children to increase their awareness of the importance of education, we have been seeing more children coming to our classes every single day.
Welcome back. International Organization for Migration revealed that a total of 2,232 African migrants stranded in Yemen returned to their countries. The International Organization for Migration provided assistance to 633 migrants during the month of January and provided assistance to 967 migrants during the month of February. According to the data, most of the migrants' return flights were operated from Aden to Sana'a airports to their countries. Governor of Taiz, Nabil Shamsan, discussed with OSHA director in Yemen expanding the level of humanitarian interventions. Shamsan stressed the importance of opening a United Nations office within the city to contribute to the completion of the economic and social development plan for the governorate. Al-Mahra governorate announced the suspension of the educational process in all public and private schools. This comes based on the directives of the local authorities to maintain the safety of students in light of the changes in weather conditions affecting the governorate. The circular stressed informing school principals to inspect their schools, turn off the electricity system, and prepare these schools to be centers to shelter those affected if necessary. Yemen is nearing a licensing agreement with Elon Musk's Starlink to provide satellite internet service to the war-torn country, according to the senior government official. Yemen's government approached Starlink for satellite internet to improve connectivity in the country. This report has more.
Elon Musk's SpaceX is close to signing a deal to provide Starlink satellite internet to Yemen, Bloomberg reported on Wednesday. An agreement that could significantly boost connectivity in the war-torn country, where millions are suffering from years of bloody civil war and Iran-backed Houthi rebels continue to disrupt global trade by attacking ships in the Red Sea. A senior government official who asked not to be named because he did not have clearance to discuss the negotiations said the government is now working on finalizing a licensing agreement with SpaceX, Starlink's parent company. The agreement, which would provide access to Starlink's vast network of satellites that circle Earth and beam high-speed internet down to the surface, might still take about a month to complete, according to a Yemeni official. If finalized, the agreement has the potential to alter connection in Yemen, which has been plagued by years of deadly civil conflict, making the country among the worst in the world in terms of connection. Improved connectivity via Starlink could mitigate Yemen's internet difficulties, which are well known for censorship and slow speed. According to the agreement, Starlink's terminals, which use a massive private satellite network, would not require clearance from the Houthi terrorist group, which controls much of Yemen. It should be noted that, unlike traditional telecommunication networks, Starlink functions independently. It would also mark a victory for Yemen's Saudi-backed and UN-recognized government over the Houthi rebels it has fought for years, who control much of the country and have exploited their control over telecommunication networks to solidify their position and suppress dissent.
The Houthi terrorist militia stormed a private hospital in the Margabaret without any legal justification. The militia attacked the health staff in the hospital, then expelled all employees and patients, including cases in the intensive care department, and closed it in light of procedures criminalized by international law. The Ministry of Health and Population reported that 155 new suspected cases of cholera were recorded in the liberated areas. Ministry statistics revealed that 155 new suspected cases of cholera were recorded on May 1st in the governorates of Adala, Lahj and Shabwa. 59 cases were recorded in Adala governorate, followed by Lahj with 31 cases and 2 in Shabwa. Al-Balsam Society for Health Training and Development announced that 113 free surgeries will be performed in May. A group of local doctors in the Republic of Yemen cooperate with the team of doctors from Al-Balsam Society in the operating rooms. Chairman of the Board of Directors of Al-Balsam Society said that the visit of their team to the Republic of Yemen is the third mission of the association after signing the cooperation agreement with the King Salman Relief Center.
يعني في صعوبات كثير مثل سعرة الطريق وبعد المسافات. إذا في مريض يعني ما تستطيع تسعفه للمستشفى، صعب جدا توصيله.
بدي سجاءها أقيس لي الضغط، قلت لي عندك حمى، عندك هبوط، بدي نصحتني، قلت لي يعني روحي المستشفى. أسعفوني صرت عند الدكتورة، قلت لي إذا كانوا يسعفوني كنتش تموتي. كان يعني ما نلقح زمان، كان يقول إحنا مش يموتوا الجوع. الحين حنا تجزع لنا إحنا بديس خلاص نلقح واصل.
بالنسبة للأسرة الذي استفادت من خدماتي يعني أغلبهن يصلن لحدود 400-500 أسرة.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Head of the Presidential Leadership Council, Rashad Al-Alimi, visits Marib province for the first time since the formation of the PLC. Violent clashes erupt at the U.S. universities as students are arrested in pro-Palestinian protests. The United Nations says rebuilding Gaza would take over 16 years. This is the end of the news. Thank you for streaming with us. It was Abir Ali.